Well, I was actually born in Quincy, Massachusetts in 1934. But my early years in Quincy were just up to like a couple, 2-3 years. And then I ended up moving, well, the family moved, relocated to Salem, Mass. And that's where I really grew up, is in Salem, Mass. And went to the local, grammar schools and middle schools, and then went on to high school, but I went on to a parochial Catholic high school, which was located in Lynn, Massachusetts. So one of the things that I learned as a youth, because this is back in the 40s, you take care of yourself and you're not driven around. And I used to hitchhike daily to school from Salem to Lynn. And I was not alone. There were probably another dozen or so young people from my neighborhood and area who were doing the same thing. And in Lynn, in West Lynn, there was located a big GE, General Electric plant. And so you could always know in the morning you'd get a ride from some of the people commuting to the GE plant, and they'd drop you off, and then we'd have to walk the greater distance into the high school. And then in the afternoon, you'd get them coming out of their afternoon shift. But it was an experience thinking about going to high school, and you had to hitchhike 15 miles to the school where it was located. My work always involved some work with children and family. And I grew up in a fairly good-sized family. I was the oldest son. And so I had some, just as part of what would happen in those days, the care of my younger brothers, And so one of the first jobs that I had was in White Plains, New York, working at a children's home. It was a children's home from children that came from populations of Puerto Rican families that were in the 50s migrating to New York City with many health problems. TB was still very prevalent in those days. And so the families, for health reasons, would be upset, and children had to be in some kind of care. There were also many black African-American populations that came out of the city. So although the children's home was located in White Plains, which is outside of the city in Westchester County, most of the children came from New York City. Well, I mentioned the golf course, Kernwood Country Club, where I grew up as a caddy there. And I eventually had a little shoe shop business in the men's locker room that I would do shoe shining. And not too long ago, a few years ago, we did a project at our church of where individuals in this group were doing various activities to raise some funds for the church. And my activity is I set up a shoe shine, mobile shoe shine at Beaver Meadow Golf Course, where I told people I'll shine their shoes and it's for the homeless. Many of my buddies would say, "Oh yeah, here, take my shoes, okay," and I'd just take them off their feet, and as they came in, and shine them, and it was fun. I think I raised $150 or something like that, but it reminded me of my years shining shoes, really, when I was really in kind of the business, so to speak, during college, at Kernwood Country Club. Well, it's about 20 years ago that I started volunteering at Beaver Meadow Elementary School. And that's in my neighborhood. I call it my neighborhood school. And I used to have some professional contacts with it from time to time around youngsters that I might see or families that I might be counseling. And so I knew many of the staff, and I knew Roger Brooks, who was just a great guy, great principal. And so I started to volunteer there with a teacher who was a good friend of mine now, as it turns out, and in a first grade, and with her for a while, and then things happened. She went up to third grade, and we moved on, and so I got promoted and so on. And so one thing led to another, but I have been known as Mr. Jim. That's who I'm called at Beaver Meadow Elementary School. And basically at this time, this day, around now, I volunteer in the first grade, and then I volunteer in the fourth grade. And about 8 years ago, I think it was, because of my introduction to speed stack cups by another teacher friend acquaintance that I had out in Antrim, I became captured and enjoyed them. And so I went to Roger Brooks at the time and said, "Can we have an after-school activity?" He said, "Yeah, we got that kind of a program. We can do that for you." Okay, so I started with an after-school program of speed stacking cups. This is a demonstration of the 3-6-3. You see 3 cups, and 6 cups. There are 12 cups in total. And what it is that you start one side, and then you go to the middle, and then you go back to where you started, and you down stack. And then you transition to what is called the 6-6. And so you do basically the same thing. And you notice I'm holding the cups very loosely, and I'm down stacking, and I bring it right over, and I'm now into the 10-1-1. Now I down stack, and I have to bring it back to 3-6-3. And there you have it, 3-6-3. And that's what, I don't know what I did that in. That was probably pretty good for me at that time. I probably did it in about 25 seconds. But the youngsters that have been doing this, like I say, some of them are down to, maybe getting close to 10, and certainly at around 15 seconds. And when you see them do it, they go so fast, and the cups drop. You wonder, like, did they really do that? I'm not sure if they did. Maybe they didn't start yet. It's just amazing when you see how fast they can go. And that's it.